Welcome to the Power of Three interview series. You and I and an expert. This is your friend here, Roberto Monaco. 3 questions will be answered today. 3 action items and 3 resources for you to grow your business. In this interview, it is my pleasure, my honor to introduce to you one of my first mentors in the business, Mr. Jim Miller. Jim Miller, my buddy, how's it going?
Everything's going well, Roberto. How about yourself?
Very good. I'm so happy that you are here today, sharing your time, sharing your knowledge with us for our community here. The first time that I decided to become a speaker, I applied for a job at Anthony Robbins Companies, and Jim Miller at that time was the vice president of sales. And this guy is pretty much the guy who started my career in sales and speaking. And I remember leaving the interview, Jim, with you, and I was so impressed with your certainty that I was like, one day I want to have that, because the way you speak, the way you communicate wasn't like a sales communication, it was like an influence conversation, and it really blew my mind away. I owe a lot to you in my career, and the 2 biggest things that how you and your training impact me, number 1, is you redefine what confidence means to me, how to be confident in a speaking, sales, or influence scenario. And number 2, most important, you remove me from a sales conversation into a influence conversation. Because most people operate in a realm of sales. And the most effective people operate in a realm of influence. And I owe that to you, my friend. I appreciate you being here today.
It's my pleasure.
So I have a couple of questions for you here.
Okay.
The number 1 question I have here is this, because I know in our community, Jim, we have realtors, we have loan officers, we have coaches, we have entrepreneurs, we have chiropractors, dentists, we have lawyers, we have financial planners, we have insurance professionals. They're all in sales. What do you think, in your opinion, because you've been in business for 25 years of senior executive management and sales leadership, in your opinion, what is the number 1 challenge with sales professionals nowadays?
Well, the biggest challenge that any sales professional faces always is the difficulty of closing a deal. And this is universal, whether it be in sales or influence. And most of this, if not all of this, is due to the fact that most of the sales strategies and education that is presented out there basically puts us in a situation that is not optimal. Let me give you an idea. What it does, Roberto, is, and I mention this always, is most of the strategies that are being used by salesmen basically guarantee that they will successfully fail. And what I mean by that is if you're running east, to try to see a beautiful sunset, you are successfully failing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, in sales, so the first thing we want you to do is to actually stop running and then turn around so that we can get you moving in the right direction. And in sales, the number 1 fault or the number 1 error that most salespeople have is that they're trained to be closers.
Okay.
And as a result, and I'm sure that you and virtually all of your audience have heard of the ABCs of sales, right?
Yeah. ABC.
Always be closing.
Yeah,
yes.
There was a movie about it. ABC.
That's right. Virtually all the sales movies have this. And as a result, so where's the focus then now? It's most powerfully focused on closing the deal from the very beginning all the way to the end.
Okay.
And so as a result, if our focus is on closing the deal, then what happens is we never open the deal. We get what's called closer's breath.
Closer's breath.
And for that reason, salespeople professionals find difficulty in actually appropriately influencing people into the proper choice, as opposed to closing them into the appropriate decision. And there's a big difference in that vernacular. We're going to talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
But if I can show you somewhat of a diagram that might give you an idea. Yep. And basically, if I take this piece of paper, which is basically an inverted triangle.
Okay.
And what we're taught is that the beginning of the sale, the deal is wide open, and then gradually we are trained to bring that conversation over time, through time, to a period of a point where we actually now close the deal.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then there's different strategies that we use. We use qualifying statements. We use trial closes. We use pressure tactics. We integrate immediacy and urgency, and all of those are appropriate, but they're inappropriate if they are presented or framed incorrectly. And as a result, what happens, Roberto, is we start actually sabotaging the encounter of influence.
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to move from the ABC mentality to an ABO mentality, which is a mentality that I'm going to talk about in this next section. But before I do that, let me mention to you what it is, why it is that the ABC, always be closing mentality, actually sabotages our success. And all you have to do is look at the numbers. In any industry, if you look at the closing numbers, you'll find that for a good industry, 25% is pretty much a standard closing rate. Do you find that to be true?
I found that to be true. Yeah.
So what that means is we're talking to 4 people in a conversation of influence, and we're allowing 3 of those to walk away because we were not effective. And I remember I had a mentor who, when I was first entered the sales business, and he asked me, he said, "Do you know the #1 reason why people don't buy, Jim?" And of course I gave him all the excuses. They can't afford it. They want to think about it. They have hesitation. He said, "No. The #1 reason why people don't buy is because they're not effectively sold."
That's good.
And that made an impact on him.
That's good. That's good.
And so his corporation, his company, his sales group was working at about a 60% closing rate. And ultimately I learned why it is and how it is that you can move from a conversation where you're basically only going to close or do business with 1 out of 4 people into a conversation of influence that's going to give you the opportunity to move into percentages that are closer to 30, 40, 50, 60%. And this is the type of results that myself and those people that I work with experience. You remember at Tony Robbins, we had this experience. We took an organization that at best was operating at about a 12% closing net average, and in 1 year we turned that whole organization around so that within that first year we generated more net profit in that 1 year than the organization had generated cumulatively in 15 years prior. And that was by changing the mindset, changing the vernacular, and then changing the skill set. And that was one of the things that you did very effectively because you're open-minded to that type of coaching.
Yes. And also, I forgot to mention too that not only you were the VP of sales for the Anthony Robbins organization, but also you got all the experience and you took and became the vice president for the T. Harv Eker organization, producing amazing results as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
awesome.
Correct. So anyway, the outcome of having this mentality of always closing is right from the beginning, our own mindset sabotages, because the first thing we're looking for or attempting to identify with our client is this customer going to do business with me today?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We're trying to pre-qualify.
Yep.
And in doing so, the focus becomes more on the end of the deal and closing the deal as opposed to what it needs to be, and that is opening the conversation of influence and not prejudging, not predetermining, not asking questions at an inappropriate time or even inappropriate questions. So this is the biggest challenge. And as a result, at the end, if you've engaged in this type of conversation, for the most of the time, what the client feels on the other end is they feel pressured to make a decision.
Yes.
You feel pressured to get them to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Rapport is very difficult to maintain because all of a sudden you've transformed from from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde, and now you've got your closing knife out, and you're attempting to close the deal at all expenses, and what ends up happening is you start now receiving the objections. And this is the one thing that tactically all salespeople want to learn, is how to overcome objections. And what I tell them is, or I ask them is, first of all, why are you even getting objections?
That's good. That's good.
Because first of all, keep in mind, what is the root word of objection is basically object, meaning that I tell them that what you're doing is you're misidentifying an objection for something than what it really is. Because if we start handling customers at the end, what we find out is that customers start giving us not objections, they give us resistance. Mm-hmm. They give us delay. Mm-hmm. They give us hesitation, right? And all of this is normal in the human experience of making a decision. Mm-hmm. I've worked with some of the professors at Harvard Program of Negotiation, and this is something they study. As a matter of fact, the Nobel Prize back in the early 2000s was won by a professor that I worked with. That basically pointed out that people hate to make decisions, and the reason they hate to make decisions is because they generally make the wrong decision. So what we try to do is get people away from making decisions and get them instead, because when you move into a decision, you're going to move into a decision with hesitation, mm-hmm. uncertainty, mm-hmm. this is the key word, uncertainty, doubt, where you might have had past experiences where you've decided wrongly and suffered consequences, and you don't want to repeat that same mistake. Mm-hmm. So if you're asking your customers to make decisions, you're putting yourself in a terribly difficult, as well as your client, mm-hmm. in a terribly difficult situation. So what we do is we move the conversation from asking customers to make decisions into powerfully moving into making choices, mm-hmm. and giving them options that are appealing to them at one level or the other. Does that make sense?
Yes, because ultimately we all have the need to have autonomy in decisions, or autonomy in life. And when you give options, people feel empowered to ultimately make a decision, but you're not asking them to do it, to give them choices. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Because also, too, what ends up happening is that when we're offering our client we're asking them to make a decision, then what ends up happening is the conversation now morphs into something that becomes a transactional conversation. Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm asking you for business, and you're going to tell me yes or no, and then I'm going to start some sort of bargaining or negotiating or whatever, song and dance, whatever the case may be. And now the whole thing is broken down to basically a transactional conversation. Now, what happens with transactional conversations is they're very difficult to close. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a low closing percentage in sales. The second thing is that you're generally not getting your best dollar, meaning you're either paring down the deal or you're paring down the profit or commission in the deal. Mm-hmm. The third thing that happens is that we increase the opportunity for buyer remorse. So we have a high degree of cancellation. When I came to T. Harv Eker, the organization was experiencing a 68% cancellation rate because, and we're talking tens of millions of dollars that were being lost annually, mm-hmm. because of cancellations. Mm-hmm. So what we did is by moving the conversation from a transactional closing conversation into more of a relationship opening conversation, we were able to, number one, eliminate cancellations down to only 12%. Mm-hmm. Number two, we were actually able to raise our prices. Mm-hmm. And number three, we were able to increase our net profit and increase gross and net sales.
So at this time, Jim, people like, I think a lot of our listeners, they have identified themselves or maybe someone in the organization who were taught to use the ABC model as a problem, of have the psychology of like closing from the beginning, and that's why they maybe experience such a low closing ratio. So the question number 2 that I have for you is this one. I mean, you've been in sales training for 25 years. You've been to all the trainings, negotiation, spin selling, you know it all. In your professional opinion, what is the most effective way to deal with this challenge?
Well, the most effective way to deal with the challenge is, first of all, to step out of, and this may be somewhat controversial, but I recommend that salespeople step out of the conventional sales training that's being offered out there, because it will lead you into the type of results. All you have to do is look at the organization and just ask them, what are the closing results of your sales? And the truth is that I never want to operate on a 25% closing level. I mean, I always want to, at least as a minimum, close 50% of the people that I talk to, or certainly do business with. Now, when I say close, what I mean is, let's talk about what the solution is, right?
Yeah.
So let me use a really simplistic diagram.
Okay.
So again, if we move from the ABC, where we're starting with a conversation that's open-ended and we want to move it to a point of closing, and instead we flip that over, because this is the reality. This is where the conversation really is. See, the conversation that you start with your client really at the beginning is closed. And what do I mean by closed? I mean, first of all, there's no rapport. Generally, this is the first time you're meeting the client. There's the client may be bringing to the table their own past experiences of mistrust, doubt, fear. They certainly, in a neuro-linguistic programming linguistics, they're going to bring critical filters. If you talk on a psychological level, they're going to bring heuristics. Heuristics meaning they're going to bring their own strategy of decision-making, which you have not yet unveiled, and they truly do not know how to effectively engage in. Because again, remember, one of the most incapable activities that a human being has is decision-making. So what we do is we recognize the fact that at the beginning, this conversation is closed. Okay. And so the focus now, Roberto, is to do what?
Open them up.
To open it up. To always be opening.
I like that. Always be opening. Yep.
Always be opening. Now, what do I mean by opening up a conversation? Well, of course, you have professionals there. So when you're opening a conversation, one of the first things that you're doing is you're attempting to gain rapport with the conversation.
Yeah.
Roberto, I just lost you. Do you see me?
I can see you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, I'm going to shoot blind because I can't see you, but
okay, I can see you.
See if I can get you back in here.
I can see you.
All right, good. Now, so the first thing we want to do is we want to open up the conversation, and the first thing is always to make sure your focus is appropriate. And the focus must be, at this point, it must be customer-centric, meaning that you are focused on engaging in a conversation that's going to get the client or the prospect in front of you to reveal themselves to you, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do we do this? This is somewhat of an art, but and to be an opener truly does require a complete transformation, a paradigm shift. But let me try to make it simplistic for you. How I open conversations is this. My focus is being human, trying to take the business conversation out and introduce a human conversation, meaning I begin with small talk. Mm-hmm. And what small talk is going to do is it's going to give the client an opportunity to relax. He's going to realize that I am human just like he is. There's nothing to fear. I'm trying to get them to start lowering the defenses, mm-hmm. lowering the critical filters, and realize I'm not as sharp. I'm not here to close you or to do business with you. I'm just happy in this moment to actually have met you. Mm-hmm. And so I will start with a small talk conversation. And let me tell you something. That small talk may be even something as simple as, what do you think about this rain out here? Isn't this a welcomed event, right? And weather is always, and it's always a great place to begin a conversation because it's something that we both experience, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I'm also going to do to get the conversation continuing is I'm going to thank the person for meeting with me. I'm going to let them know that they're welcomed in my life in this moment. I'm going to give a good, firm handshake, but I'm also going to make certain, Roberto, that I am pacing the customer, meaning basically what? Getting in rapport.
Yep.
Right? With all the different sensory perceptions that we learned with Tony and et cetera, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And I'm going to do my best to attempt to begin to do a delayed mirroring of that client, meaning that I am going to look to assume their mannerisms, their languaging. But notice I said delayed because I don't want it to seem artificial. I don't want it to seem contrived. So there might, and it doesn't have to be 100%, but certainly people respond to people like them. Now, why is that? What am I doing? What I'm doing is I'm not necessarily focused on the human, I'm focused on their humanity. And this is what I'm speaking into. I'm speaking into their humanity because this is what we all experience together is our humanity. We're different, but there are some things about our humanity that are similar. And one of them is that we respond more affectionately, more positively, and more openly to someone who is similar to us. Okay? Did you agree?
Yep.
Yes? Okay.
I'm taking notes, my brother. I'm taking notes.
All right. Okay. So I'm opening the conversation, and in no way at this point should business be on my mind, should qualifying be on my mind, should my presentation be on my mind. The only thing I want to do is engage this person in a conversation of humanity. I might ask them what their plans are for this Thanksgiving holiday. I might ask them if they happen to be a local sports fan, what do they think about the team? I'll ask them about the industry that there is, not necessarily what they're doing for a living, because that's a closer question, right? It's going for the wallet. But I might ask them, just what industry is it that you're in, Roberto? And you'll share that with me. And I might ask you, wow, how is it that you got involved in that? How long ago, and how is it that you got involved in that industry? And everybody's got a story. And they want to tell that story. And from that story, they will give you cues on what to ask next or what to say next, correct? And then I'll briefly give them a little bit about myself as well so that now we know each other. And what I want to do, basically, Roberto, is I want to get this conversation to a point where I feel that the customer feels or has completely forgotten that we're here to talk business. Does that make sense?
100%. So
Okay.
in my mind, I'm wondering how do you transition into the sale at one point after you build up this really deep level of rapport, proximity. You connect in a human level. How do you
Correct.
transition into a sales conversation or into business conversation?
Very good question. And at this, now let me tell you, you may spend anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes or longer in this initial step, right?
Okay, yeah.
And by the way, most of us have been trained in step selling, yes?
Yes.
Step one, step two. And I always ask salesmen, what is the most important step in the sales process? And the answer is the step you're in. The one that you're in is the most important step, and it's the one you have to win before you proceed to the next, or before you segue into the next. Yes?
Yes, that's good.
So this is something you must win in order to proceed. Now, in proceeding, what I might do is I will use transitional phraseology. I might say, Roberto, at another time and place, I would really enjoy spending some time with you on a personal level. But I know that both of us here are here to talk a little business now. So let me suggest to you what it is that we're here to talk about today. And let's see how that sets with you. Let's see if there's any questions or any observations that you have that I might be able to help you with, and then we can proceed from there at your pace, and look to accomplish the objective we're both here for today. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay, good. Now, so how do you segue from one step to another? You use a transitional phrase. Let them know that the step that you were just in, you enjoyed, and you could continue for a long time, and then give them the courtesy of letting them know that you're there also to respect the fact that we're both there to talk business. Let's do it at your pace. Let's make certain that you've got all the information that you need, and if there's any questions or any observation, please share them with me, and also allow me the same opportunity with you, so that we can both come to the objective you're here for today, as quickly, but more importantly, as effectively as possible. Fair enough?
Fair enough. And
this is what I'm asking. I'm asking always for fairness, because this is what I'm going to deliver. I'm going to use vernacular of fairness, and I'm going to use vernacular of choice. So I might begin the conversation with a question. I might say, just out of curiosity, and you notice that's a transitional statement.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say just out of curiosity, automatically the humanity in us causes us to sit up and listen to what it is you're about to say and be prepared to give a response. So what I'm doing is I'm now conditioning my client to basically give me the answers that I need, and that I will be asking most of the questions, and it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
So I might say something like, just out of curiosity, Roberto, how long a period of time have you been considering acquiring the product that our company offers, whether it's from us or anyone else? See how I open that up? I'm always opening up availability. I'm not closing. I'm opening the opportunity for him to do business with us or anyone else, and it doesn't faze me.
Mm-hmm.
So you might give me an answer. You might tell me, well, I've been thinking about this. We've been considering this now for some time, maybe over the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then my response is, and most salespeople will give a response, an inappropriate response. They'll actually congratulate the response. They might say something like, great, or wow, and it's totally inappropriate. Okay, so the response that we train to give is a response that basically is designed to let the client know that was good, but there might be some follow-up I need on that. So if I ask you, just out of curiosity, Roberto, what time frame has your organization been considering acquiring a product that's offered by my company and others out there?
I would say 8 months. 8 months.
That's interesting. And that's my response. Because when you say that's interesting, what you're basically letting them know is that this has registered in my mind, but I'm not letting you know how it registered, so that in your mind now there is somewhat of a little confusion and a little need to reconcile and bring some sort of synthesis to what it was that just happened. You with me?
Yeah.
It's a psychological strategy, a tactic that basically keeps the client open-ended, right? Like like an open-ended loop. Yes.
Yeah.
Like an open loop in a conversation in NLP. And then I will say something to the effect. So what I'm getting from that, Roberto, is that whatever you do today, it's not necessarily, certainly not a knee-jerk reaction, right? It's something that you're probably prepared to make some sort of move on, whether it be today or any time in the near future. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so you see what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is I'm starting to take away his legs of the resistance that he might give me at the end. And that would be, well, Jim, this is something we want to think over, something that we need some time, by basically getting him to agree that this is not a knee-jerk reaction. This is something you've been considering. You probably have done some preparation, some research, and probably something that you're prepared to make some sort of move on, whether it be now or in the near future. Yes?
Yes.
Keeping the option open. right?
Yeah, you
The
basically
option's open.
you address an objection without pressuring, without closing.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that there are no objections in the end. The only
Yes.
thing that I want in the end is what choice do you feel comfortable moving into? Because we always want to we never want to give a client a yes, no decision. We want to give the client an option. Which one of the options, the choices in these options are you most comfortable with in this moment, right?
Yes.
And you notice how we're introducing immediacy. We're introducing the opportunity for them to actually choose to do business with us today. So I say whether it be today or any time in the near future. And this is what I'm always going to repeat because I want to start introducing the element of immediacy, of urgency. And then I'll introduce scarcity because keep in mind, Roberto, this is a one-call close strategy. I have never, ever, ever in 25 years closed a deal the next day. Never. And you know this from our training.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a one-call close
Low die.
strategy.
Low
Whether
die.
you're on the phone, whether you're face-to-face, one-to-one, or one-to-many. It's a one-call close strategy. Because it's irresistible. It's an irresistible methodology of presenting and then also leading people into, influencing them into a pathway of making a final choice at the end that they are comfortable making.
I love that. I love
Okay?
that. I love that.
And 50% of the people that because I'm a senior consultant right now with Sears, so I do training with a very significant sales force, but I am also in the field as well, doing the same work under the same conditions as the people I train.
Yep.
And just to give you an idea, the national average, and I'm not saying this to impress you, but to impress upon you the effect, the overall consequences or effect of this type of strategy. The overall average sale dollar volume for what it is that Sears sells in this division is about $7,800.
Okay.
The average sale that I'm able to bring in averages $19,000. And in the office last year, out of 58 consultants doing it part-time, I was the number 2 representative in overall sales and the number 1 nationwide out of close to 1,500 sales consultants nationwide in dollar volume. There were others that were right there with me, but I was at the top ranking in dollar volume. And why is that? Because customers feel, number one, more comfortable deciding to do business with me. Secondly, because we've opened up the opportunities in the conversation, I don't focus on presenting them only one buying opportunity. I stack the buying opportunities for my clients so that they're able to spend as much money as they want with me in that encounter.
I love that.
You see?
I love that.
What customers want is, it's not that a customer is looking to trust you. It's that a customer is looking to trust themselves with you.
That's good. That's
right?
good. That's
because
good.
who is the ultimate closer in the deal? It's the customer.
Yeah,
They are. They close the deal. They make the decision. If we can become effective and master the art of opening the sale, opening the close, and then train ourselves to think and speak in the vernacular of choice and learn all of the strategies and the tactics and the mindset that go with this way of this body of knowledge of influence, then I can assure you, like all of the sales consultants that I personally trained or trained with organizations, you will be successful. There will be success at the end of this conversation.
So can you give me a question number 3? I think so you really expand. You gave a lot to us here. I appreciate that, Jim. You really did. Can you give like one quick example, question number 3? of maybe a case study, a client that you help?
Absolutely. Let me just give one example of a client that I was with day before yesterday. Excuse me, just yesterday.
Okay.
And this was a gentleman who was deciding. We had a conversation, and I was presenting him with the opportunity to engage in about a $29,000 contract, right, on a one call close. And he stood up and he said, "Listen." He says, "I am not making any decisions today. I don't make decisions in the moment. And if that's what you're asking me, then let's call the whole thing off." Maybe your salespeople have had that same experience, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so what I did was simply, first of all, recognize this was not an objection. There are no objections. What there are feelings, beliefs, reactions, fears and doubts,
Yep.
unanswered questions, and most importantly, Roberto, uncertainty.
Yep.
So we don't overcome. These are subjections. These are subjective feelings, beliefs, thoughts. Yes?
Yes. I love that. Yep.
Okay, so we don't overcome subjections. What we do with subjections is, first of all, diffuse them. Number one, because a subjection is oftentimes, if not always, laced with emotion. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing we do is diffuse. And we diffuse simply by not only agreeing, but actually overstating what it is the customer gave us. So what I told him was, "Bernard, listen, there's no need to feel that you have to make a decision in this moment. As a matter of fact, I'm not asking to make a decision because I find difficulty myself in making decisions in the moment. You're doing a lot better than I am, because at this point, I would be sweating bullets if I were in your shoes thinking that I had to make a decision." So first of all, understand, no one is going to make a decision today. Fair enough?
Fair. That's good. Yep.
And he agreed with me. And you see how I lowered my voice. I paced my voice so that it could get through to him, because the way to get through emotion is to vary your speech pattern, because the ear will hear it differently and will be alert to it. Yes? Okay.
Yep.
So he calmed down immediately. And then I proceeded to ask him, if we were talking in a couple of days, would you feel comfortable choosing to go forward with what it is we're discussing, or would there be something more or less that would have to be added to the conversation in order for you to feel comfortable making the choice to award this business to me, whether it be today, and once again I'm introducing today, or 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months from now? And he told me what it was that he needed. What it was that he needed was to actually expand the conversation. He needed to have a conversation that included not only what it was that we were talking about, but something even more. And so the second part of diffusing is then deflect. Deflect the conversation to something differently. Don't talk about the same thing that you just got the guy sweating bullets over, but create a new conversation. And we did, and we ended up doing business at $40,000.
I love that.
In that moment.
I love that.
Because simply what I did was allowed his reaction to go over like a wave, right? Because you can crash into the wave, or you can do what with a wave?
Can go with the wave.
You can surf the wave.
Yep.
Right? So I just got on the board, right?
Yep.
And we surfed. And he ended up choosing to do business with Sears that day. So that's an example
Thanks, my
how it
brother.
is we continue to open up opportunities and choices for the customer to move in themselves. Yes?
Yes. Now, quickly, do you have 3 quick action steps for our listeners to take right now? 3 quick ones. Could be anything. With all this information, 3 quick things that they can implement to improve their sales, their influence skills, their
I do.
businesses. Okay?
First step is, number one, is to make certain that you've given yourself the rule, an internal rule, that you are going to spend a minimum of 10 minutes the next sales encounter that you have talking about anything but business. Introducing a personal conversation, a friendly conversation, and realize that there is an extraordinary amount of depth that is involved in this step.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of psychology, there's a lot of neuro-linguistic programming that's involved in order to position yourself and the client to move and segue into the conversation of business.
Love that.
Okay? That's number one.
Number 2.
Okay. The number 2 is, I want you to look at the last sale experience that you were involved in, whether you closed the deal or you didn't close the deal, and I want you to really honestly investigate what information was it, personal information was it that you were able to extract from your client. Do you know, for example, how he met his wife? Do you know, for example, how many children he has? What he has planned for his Thanksgiving vacation, what they did on their summer vacation, how long they were in the industry, what is the pet that they own, what is the pet's name, how did they get in the industry, and do they enjoy the industry they're in? What is it that they enjoy most? You see, this is the information that comes from effectively opening up a conversation of influence, and the customer will give it to you.
Yes.
Okay? That's number 2.
Number 3.
The number 3 conversation is to start immediately change the vernacular that you're using from a vernacular of decision to a vernacular of choice. And using this statement, if given the choice. Roberto, if given the choice, do you feel your company is more inclined to want to proceed with these services immediately or in the near future, if given the choice? If given the choice, do you feel that you would be more comfortable with a company that offers a pricing that is lower, or a company that is offering a competitive pricing but with a stack, an array of additional services that are guaranteed to give you success in using their product if given the choice? So what you're doing is you're basically getting the client to commit in and commit out. I want them to commit into doing, to consider doing business with me, and commit out of doing business with competitors that may be cheaper, maybe they may have more experience with, whatever the case may be. I'm looking to get commitments. And what the commitments do is they open up the opportunity for me to continue the conversation with my client as if he were a client.
I love that. I'm going to use that.
If given the choice.
If given the choice.
And then as you get towards the close or the end where you're offering the customer a choice, you can actually start putting them in the client position. If given the choice, Roberto, of engaging in these services that my company offered, would this be something that your sales force would be ready to initiate this week or towards the beginning of next month? Right? So now I'm actually starting to get them to make choices as if they're a client.
Okay.
Right? And actually engaging in my service and incorporating them in their business. But anyway, if given the choice.
Love them, brother. So let's talk about, I know you're always studying, and I know you also do consulting, high-level consulting. if people want to evolve this conversation, there's a lot of people that are watching us right now. Can you give us 3 resources for them to learn, to contact you, to reach out and see how your sales or your consulting works? 3 little resources.
I sure will. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give 3 plus a bonus resource.
Okay.
The first source that I'm going to give is a tactical source, meaning that these are specific tactics in the in the body of influence that you can use, that you can incorporate in sales, in client relationships, whatever. And this guy truly is a master at it. His name is Stuart Diamond. He's this is his book here. It's called Getting More. Okay. Right? I don't read sales books, but I do read books of influence, negotiation, and psychology. This is a very good tactical book. I found a lot of good tactics in here. Stuart Diamond.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now, on a strategic level, meaning that you want to start now retraining your brain and really start understanding the whole decision-making process, and why is it that people make a decision one way and not another, and how is it that I can tap into that? Because if you don't understand that, how can you be in the field of negotiation, influence, or sales if you don't understand how people make decisions, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So, Max Bazerman, he's with the program of negotiation at Harvard University. A friend of mine, Tony, and I went up to Harvard and did a lot of work with him there. This is called Judgment in Managerial Decision Making, Max Bazerman. But any book by Max Bazerman is going to be good stuff. And this is more of a strategic. It's a very intellectual book, and it's just got great information on how and why people make decisions.
Love that.
Now, here's a bonus, and that is you can actually, the Harvard program on negotiation will send you a free newsletter. They send me one daily, if not every other day. You can go to the program on negotiations, just PON, at Harvard University, sign up for their newsletter, and it's profound. It really is. You're going to learn strategies every day on negotiation, sales, influence, business relationships, communication, etc., storytelling, like you're involved in. So that's a bonus resource.
Love that. And I know there's a lot of people this time thinking, Jim, if I want to hire you to help me out with my sales, what is the best way to reach you? How do you work as a consultant?
The best way to reach me, and I do work with individuals and groups, the best way to reach me is at my email, and that's jemsd1@gmail.com. I'm sure you'll probably have that.
Yeah, I'm going to put right here in the video. Yeah.
And secondly, my cell number is 619-871-8814.
I'm also going to put here in the video.
Very good. Very good.
My brother.
I'll be happy to have conversations and look for opportunities to engage with individuals that may find value in this conversation.
My friend, I really appreciate you. You're a rock star, man. You really helped my career. And every single time we meet at Coffee Bean, I always leave the conversation with you with new ideas. So inspired to improve my game. And I always look up to you because you're always on the cutting edge, learning and studying and applying. You not only know the stuff you teach, but you apply and use in your everyday life. So I really appreciate you. Thanks so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, experience with the InfluenceOlogy community today. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Berto. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.